Amid escalating tensions, President Donald Trump's renewed tariffs on China, reaching up to 104%, have sent shockwaves through global markets, igniting fears of a full-blown trade war. As inflation looms for U.S. consumers and businesses grapple with rising costs, Beijing faces its own economic crossroads, balancing retaliation with self-reliance efforts. Beyond economics, these measures signal a geopolitical chess match over technological dominance, Taiwan, and military influence. Will this reshape supply chains, spur decoupling, or alienate allies? From the U.S. to China, the ripple effects demand answers and caution. I'm Hani Saif, and this is Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
The Washington Post has reported that President Donald Trump's aggressive tariffs have hastened a post-American world, undermining the U.S.-led global order. By imposing unilateral measures, he disrupted decades of economic interdependence, fracturing alliances and pressuring nations like China to adapt to decoupling. His zero-sum trade policies risk inequality and erode U.S. influence. Allies explore alternatives to American systems. Students reconsider U.S. universities, and markets brace for volatility. Singapore's leader warned of fractured trade based on politics as Europe crafts independent platforms. A U.S.-China trade war looms, with Beijing preparing for long-term decoupling with Trump, while Trump pushes reshoring through automation. Critics argue this ignores structural shifts, risking Gilded Age-like disparities. Americans may soon yearn for the globalization they now reject, a paradox in Trump's quest for national revival. From factory floors to dinner tables, Trump's tariffs on China are shaking global trade. But will they reshape economic power or spark a costly trade war?
The reimposition of tariffs by President Donald Trump has reignited tensions between the U.S. and China, raising concerns about potential full-blown trade war. With duties as high as 104% on Chinese goods, these measures aim to protect American industries but risk triggering retaliatory actions from Beijing. The geopolitical stakes are immense, with Taiwan, technological dominance, and military postures amplifying underlying tensions. Economically, the tariffs carry significant implications for both nations. Inflationary pressures in the U.S. could rise as small business owners grapple with high costs of importing Chinese goods, while steel-dependent workers face uncertainty over job security. Meanwhile, China's response focuses on self-reliance initiatives, such as bolstering domestic semiconductor production and fostering regional supply chains under its dual circulation strategy. Global markets have reacted sharply, with stock indices plunging amid fears of disrupted supply chains. Some companies may reconsider relocating production away from China, eyeing alternatives like Vietnam or Mexico. Yet long-term decoupling trends remain uncertain, given interwoven economic dependencies. Public reactions highlight mixed sentiments. American consumers worry about rising prices, while Chinese citizens express frustration at perceived U.S. violations. Flashbacks to Trump's first presidency reveal limited success. Tariffs failed to significantly reduce the trade deficit or spur widespread manufacturing revival domestically. Ultimately, these tariffs signal a broader geopolitical strategy aimed at curtailing China's global influence rather than purely economic gains. For investors, diversification is key to mitigating volatility. Allies watch warily as Washington prioritizes protectionism over free trade principles, reshaping international alliances and economic competition globally.
And to provide more analysis about the most recent updates concerning Trump's tariffs and their implications, we're joined from Washington by Mr. John Rossomando, the national security analyst, and from Cairo by Dr. Ashraf Singh, the international relations expert. Gentlemen, welcome to Think Tank. Mr. Rossomando, I'll start off with you now. With tariffs reaching 104%. Is this move by President Trump a recalibration of the U.S. economic power or an overreach that risks global market instability?
I think that President Trump is counting on some of the global market instability because he's trying to bring about a fundamental reordering of the global economic order that he has said for decades has been at America's disadvantage, and he's trying to, force the world to align, with the U.S. or align with China. I think the one thing that he's really trying to do is he believes that China has more to lose than the United States because our economy still is larger than China's. And he's also has people like investor Kevin O'Leary talking, saying that he should take it up to 400%. I think there's going to be a lot of economic pain to go through. I mean, especially as we start getting toward the midterm elections here in the U.S. And whether the American voter and where American consumer will put up with it. But I think that he has an ideological goal here of diminishing China's economic power.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Singer, how might this U.S.-China tariff war impact other emerging economies that are seeking to balance ties with both powers?
Yeah, Trump policies now is changing the world. In other words, the other words, the potential risks and opportunities that really can raise, from the ongoing shifts in the global trade dynamic, as well as how nations might adjust, from protection policies and broader economic shifts. In other words, emerging economies are facing, significant challenges. We understand, that balancing their ties with both, the U.S. and China during, the ongoing tariff war. From the undergraduate classes, we understand clearly that a small nation gets really benefits from the bigger guy. So basically, nations in Africa or in Asia, small nations, definitely will get hurt from policies or the trade war between China. The tariff war could really faces these nations to pick a side. So basically, these countries, the small countries, should really think carefully. Should I really adopt China policy or should really adopt U.S. policy in trade in general? I understand this type of tariff will make imports from China and United States very, very expensive. We understand, in terms of the U.S. dollar as a currency, as a power, it's really very expensive. The small countries can really get access to the small countries in Africa and Asia, and even China started to talk with the EU. Probably China needs really to find a step there. This is to really change, the Trump calculation of his trade policy. And my understanding that the United States really does need to keep the European Union in their territory, or in their umbrella, or under their umbrella, not really moving Europe to China. This will be like a scary picture for the United States.
Mr. Orsomondo, from a security point of view, how do these tariffs align with the broader U.S. national security goals, particularly regarding Taiwan and technological dominance over China?
I think that President Trump is trying to emulate China's unrestricted warfare philosophy that gets into economics, gets into technology, and also militarily. I mean, the Chinese have been building ships left and right at a pace that we haven't been able to keep up with. So President Trump is trying to curtail some of China's economic leverage that it has. The Chinese publicly say they have a 5% growth rate, but the U.S. government believes that it's a lot less, and that Xi Jinping doesn't have the economic leverage that some of his predecessors might have had, and that the United States wants to do some damage to the Chinese economy. I mean, going back 40 years, the U.S. used economic leverage to bring down the Soviets, and I think that President Trump is trying to do a similar thing with the Chinese, but on a larger scale.
Dr. Singer, can China's dual circulation strategy serve as a model to follow for other nations striving for economic self-reliance amid the global uncertainties?
I would like to say that Chinese is pretty sneaky, and they can really survive from that kind of severe trade. And China, dual circulation strategy is mainly emphasizing on reducing, the reliance on foreign markets and boosting, domestic demand alongside with continuing, foreign trade. So China needs really to move to, of course, the United States is a big market for China, but China needs really to move to the other markets in different, regions, Africa and Asia and Europe. So my best understanding that this is could really give it Chinese like secure, self-reliance economics. But we understand that China is still considered, even it's a big power in economic and even in military, but it's still considering as an emerging market for different sectors. Basically, any kind of a shock coming like trade war or global economic slowdown will move China to find other markets in different regions, as I said. And basically, Chinese will help the emerging markets to, build their own domestic industry and fostering, the consumption. Could be like an effective strategy. But that model, really to succeed or making that a success relies on each country capacity to develop, like strong internal market. Of course, this is not really easy, and invest in infrastructure, and this is not really easy, and create, like that kind of innovation environment. So this type of investment and creating all that kind of cycle, it's not easy for the small countries, but for developing nations with limited access to the capital, this is why many small countries need really to, or emerging countries, economics, need really to uh, find a way to borrow a capital or technology to adapting, with the new strategies where we can really uh, see that kind of a trade war. And this is basically requires require a careful balance with the international partnership, particularly in that kind of severe war between China and United States. That type of uncertainty really create that kind of fear from the next step. Every country now is calculating what I should do to deal with that kind of Trump policies. Uh, you need to find different products, different markets, need to
Yes.
boosting their internal markets and industries and infrastructure and investment. Yeah, this is not very easy for
Hmm.
this type of
Mr.
countries
Rosamando,
now.
Mr. Rosamando, you've mentioned that China might be seen as a country that has more to lose economically, but could the escalating trade tensions lead to a geopolitical showdown beyond economics, especially amid the rising military postures in the Indo-Pacific?
Think that definitely that's a possibility. I think that the latest public intelligence report is that China could make a move on Taiwan within the next 6 months, which would really put President Trump's leadership to the test. So I think that one of the things that I was referring to is that China still has a degree of a command economy that is less resilient in certain ways than the American market economy that ebbs and flows. So I think that is something that the China could hurt the Chinese. But if Xi feels cornered, of course everything is on the table, and I think that President Trump and his team should be considering kinetic as well as economic consequences to their policies.
Mhm. Well, Dr. Singer, do you think that the decoupling trends could they reshape supply chains in favor of regional blocs such as Africa, Europe trade corridors at the expense of the transatlantic links?
Yeah, this definitely. Decoupling, trends fueled by growing tensions between the United States and China definitely are likely to result in reshaping, the global supply chain. That type of policy by trade, trade war between China and United States definitely will drive these countries, to find another block of trade. For example, the African Europe, relationship. It's gonna to be growing, next this week, and consider, the that visit by President Emmanuel Macron to Egypt. This could be like the starting where France and other European countries need really to get access to the major countries in Africa, like Egypt, for example. But that kind of strategy could see like a growth, as a African nation uh, look to enhance, their trade relationship with European countries, focusing on mutual investment and technology and exchange infrastructure projects. So this type of regional trade agreement will be required to get out of this kind of war between China and United this type of trade war between China and the United States, and this is required to improve like kind of implementations, different policies, try to increase their local production networks. This is, will definitely help them to reduce their dependence on transatlantic, or that type of crisis or trade war between China and the United States. And, and we keep in our mind that, this type of war, a trade war, is pretty risky for everybody. We don't understand exactly what is the calculations by Trump administration. Probably they're right, or probably they're wrong. It requires some time until to see the outcome of this that type of policy. Of course, the American people will get hurt for short term. Probably in long term, probably Trump will be a winner. We don't understand exactly. We need really to wait until to examine, Trump model. If that really changed the international trade policies and changing even the international policy.
Well, Mr. Rossomando, what do these American measures mean for alliances like NATO and the European Union? Are Trump's unilateral measures undermining decades of US-led globalization?
I think that's exactly what President Trump intends to do. It's not, something that's accidental. I mean, President Trump has been in the forefront of the nationalist America First policy. And he has been saying recently that he believes the European Union was made to, quote unquote, screw the U.S. And he has complained for decades that NATO has survived based on American largesse instead of the European states standing up and being a real partner. I mean, you have militaries like the British military that have basically become useless. The French have begun to react. But other than France and Poland, the NATO is basically useless.
Well, Dr. Singer, is it a clear sign that Trump's protectionist policies are signaling a shift away from free trade principles? And on the long run as well, what are the implications for the unilateral institutions like the WTO?
Yeah, this is a very good question. My best understanding that is we have it two schools of thought, liberalism versus realism. It seems to me like very clear that Trump adopting, the realism, where this type of policy, like tariffs and trade restrictions, this is a very huge shift, and it's really a clear signal, point or a signal, clear departure from the traditional free trade principles that have really governed the international economic relations for decades. My best understanding, this type of policies by Trump will reduce that, restricted, the liberal economic order and create like challenges for the multilateral institutions. This is where the European Union, where really believing for a while, for a long time, that we need really to adapt the multilateral institution rather than unilateral. It seems to me that President Trump is really adapting unilateral, approach of it. And I'm not saying it's punishing, all the countries all over the world.
Yes.
Maybe some expert saying, he should really select some specific, triangles where they have a problem, United States like China.
Mr. John Rossomando, the national security analyst, and Dr. Ashraf Singer, the international relations expert. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your special valuable insights. Now, from trade wars to geopolitical chess matches, Trump's 104% tariffs reshape the global dynamics, testing economies, alliances, and stability. The world watches as power recalibrates amid uncertainty. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us, and this was Think Tank.